Boom! Hello and welcome to the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Byron Rodgers. This podcast is dedicated to the executive protection practitioner, the private security professional. In this podcast, we're going to talk about the mental, emotional, psychological, physiological fitness that goes into being an efficient and effective executive protection agent. Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a mom that's looking at how to protect her children, or a father that's focused on how to protect his family, I believe this podcast has something for all of you. We might even get into some tales from the crypts of true Hollywood stories from time to time. I'm doing this podcast because I feel the reality of this job is simple. If you really want to be good at executive protection, it's more than just a job. It really is a lifestyle. And those of you who've been in the game for any serious amount of time, you already know what I'm saying is true. So if that sounds interesting to you, enjoy the show. Out. Boom. What you are currently listening to is part 2 in a series. If you haven't heard the first one, I suggest you go back and check out the content we put down 1 episode ago. If you've earned your way here, sit back and enjoy the show. We've got some awesome content coming your way right now. Now we get into the high speed stuff that I know everyone's waiting for, right? Which is, I was on your website, and this kind of touches on what we were talking about. And I read this testimonial. I think it was from a lady who was there at the Vegas incident. And she was kind of talking about the same thing we're talking about with regards to your training, having programming, having some bars of programming in her mind, things she learned from your course that actually helped her get into action, get into decisive action, and her and her boyfriend survived as a result of those actions, according to the testimonial, which is, man, that's awesome. That's got to be an amazing feeling. So let's talk about this.
Okay. So for the listeners, so they understand the foundation of what we're talking about, I created an active shooter survival program called ALIVE, A-L-I-V-E. It stands for Assess, Leave, Impede, Violence, and Expose. And the incident you're referring to is a woman who her employer had hired me 2 and 3 years ago from that time to come in and teach all of the employees. There's about 80 employees, I think, my program. So I taught them the program. About 2 weeks after the October 1st massacre in front of Mandalay Bay at the Jason Aldean concert, I get this email in the morning. It was a Saturday morning or something. I woke up, I looked at my phone, I got this email, and I had to reread it. I was like, wow. So essentially what it says was, on October 1st, my boyfriend and I were at the concert. We're to the right of the stage, and suddenly we heard firecrackers. And we thought, oh, it's part of the show, or some smart asses lighting off firecrackers in the group. Yeah. She said, but then we started to see people agitated and panic, and we didn't know what was going on. And she said, I turned around and looked, and a woman got shot in the face, and a man got shot in the chest right behind me.
Yep.
So she said her boyfriend and her and everybody else around them hit the deck. They hit the ground, kind of in a big pile in front of the stage. And she said, at that very moment, your training, though it was 2.5 years prior, just came from my subconscious to my conscious mind. And I knew exactly what to do. And she turned to her boyfriend and said, when the shooting stops, we got to run.
Yeah.
He said, no, I think we should just stay here. We'll be safer here. Let's just stay here. And she said, sorry, bud. When the shooting stops, I'm leaving with or without you.
Absolutely.
He said, okay. So Stephen Paddock stopped to reload. They got up, grabbed hands, and started running. He started firing again. They took cover. He stopped to reload again, and they took off. They made it all the way back to Luxor. She texted her mom and said, Mom, I'm out here. You're going to see some stuff on the news. I'm okay.
Wow.
She said, it was a great presentation and all, but I hadn't thought about it a single day since that time I trained her. But, in times of stress, our minds will default to our level of training. Now, that's not something that you just rest on your laurels and go, I heard it one time, so I'll always know it.
Yes.
However, just like the Heimlich maneuver or CPR, you learn it and then forget about it, but all of a sudden somebody's life is in danger, and it's amazing how quickly that recall can come back to you.
Right.
So that's exactly what she did. When she contacted me, it was a very profound moment in my life. She came to my office. She lived in Orange County. She came to my office. She told me everything that happened. She cried. She said, I haven't been able to talk about this since it happened. It was really kind of liberating for me to be able to share this with somebody.
Wow.
And then, of course, the news got a hold of it, and they interviewed everybody. So that on my website, there's a couple, 3 different interviews. And it's a pretty interesting. Yeah, that changed my life. I mean, I couldn't tell that story for probably 6 months without getting choked up, because a woman looked me in the eyes and said, your training saved my life. And that was kind of a big deal for me. So, but it was, the ultimate testimonial. Basically, what I taught her to do, she practiced, and she survived. And nothing could be more satisfying or validating. So since then, I have been passionate. All I do anymore, my companies are run by a very good crew. My executive team is excellent, and they're probably glad to have me out of the office most of the time. But mostly what I do is just travel around the country teaching my Alive program now. And I wrote a book that was published in January called 10 Minutes to Live.
Fantastic.
Now, the reason I named that is because 98% of active shooter incidences lasted 10 minutes or less. The highest body counts, like Virginia Tech and Las Vegas, lasted exactly 10 minutes. 68% last less than 5 minutes. So the reason I talk about 10 minutes is I want people to know and to get it stuck in their head.
Right.
It's going to end. You only have to survive for 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Probably less than 10 minutes. And the reason that's important is because people in times of panic, they will freeze with fear, and they will think to themselves, I'm going to die. And that is not a survival mindset. That is a victim mindset.
Absolutely.
And nothing good can come of having that mindset, because an active killer or active shooter, I use them interchangeably because not all active killers use guns.
Yeah.
They are there to take as many lives as quickly as possible. And that mindset is important for these people to know. There's no negotiating. You will either get out of there, you will avoid them, or you will take them down, or you will. And so that instills basically 100% fight or flight. And I tell people in my presentation, you must commit 100% to literally killing this person if it comes down to you having to attack this attacker, if you have to engage them. I wish for anyone to take another life. No, you probably know as a Marine, a combat Marine, as well as anybody, there's a lot of weight that comes with taking another human life under any circumstances. But I tell them that is the level of commitment that you must have if you are going to engage an attacker. There's no 85%. You're leaving 15% on the table. My dad,
violence of action, 100%.
When my dad taught me how to defend myself when I was a little kid, he said, if you're going to punch somebody, you don't aim for their face. You aim for the back of their head. So you go through the front of their face.
Right.
Well, this is the same thing. You don't just aim for disarming this person and hope you do it. You aim for absolute
catastrophic.
Once you get them down and the gun is away from them, it's your decision whether to follow through or not.
Right.
But again, taking another human life is a pretty heavy thing.
Yeah.
But getting to that point where they are no longer a threat, you've got to commit 100%.
100%. Yeah. You've got to break their will. You got to break their body. You got to do these things. I mean, there's so much there. No, having that experience of that testimonial, ultra validating. I mean, I could see how that would set you on a path to like, man, this is good stuff that I'm doing, and looking at, someone who, I mean, it's one thing, like we're a certain type of person, we're, some say sheepdog, some say wolves, good wolves and bad wolves, but we're combatants, but looking into the eyes of, one of the civilians, some would say sheep, and seeing that that you were able to influence the outcome and help them defend themselves or survive. Man, that's good. That's good stuff.
Powerful.
Yeah, absolutely powerful. Life-changing, really. And there's so much to be said for that, degrading back to your level of training and your level of forethought. I think as protectors, we have the responsibility of surviving in the theoretical, because it's It's a muscle that we've probably been using since we were little, but I think a lot of what we do, if you really look at it, is we're in this theoretical imaginary world, like looking through the trajectory of a whole entire engagement, a whole entire battle all the time, so that when it happens, they can play into our hand. We can have tactical advantages, and that's kind of like our dark art. It's our world. Yeah, and I've seen it. I've literally seen it work. A protector, we walk into a room, we're looking at all the different vulnerabilities, all the different variables. Players on the board recognize each other. Who else is watching the room? Who else is paying attention? We're going to get into positioning. We're looking at our hard points. Now that we've got a decent positioning in the room, who's got a better position than me? What am I going to do, if X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3 starts happening? Where's my next hard point? And if you're not doing these things as a protector, you're wrong, So yeah, no, that's awesome. So the premise of the 10 minutes to live is essentially changing the mindset of really kind of the victim mindset into a survivalist mindset.
100%. I've seen many active shooter survival programs. Obviously, I want to go see everybody.
Yeah.
I'm a advanced Alice instructor for the Alice Training Academy.
Okay.
And one thing that I have noticed is very different from my program, and I'm hesitant to say mine's the best or better, but I will say it's different. Mm-hmm. Much of what I teach, 50% of what I teach, is mindset, not just method.
Right.
And teach run, hide, fight all day long, but like I say in my presentation, you can be the fastest runner in the world, but if you don't have a burning desire to cross the finish line first, you're not going to get the gold. If you don't have a burning desire to survive and know that you can, because you're focused on dying or not seeing your family and you're frozen in fear, you're going to be a victim. So a lot of what I teach, and some people have even referred to it as a motivational speaking portion, because I tell people that you have to have that mindset to succeed in survival, no matter what it takes. And a lot of people, Gavin DeBecker wrote The Gift of Fear. Now, I love that book because it talks about fear being a gift. Literally, it's a signal from the universe or your brain or whatever that says, "Hey, time to get on high alert and be ready to act."
Right.
Just like if you're thirsty and you don't drink, you'll die. If you're hungry and you don't eat, you'll die. If you're exhausted and if you don't rest, you'll die. If you're afraid and you don't respond appropriately, you can die.
Exactly.
And if we understand that fear is a stimulus that we can use and we welcome it to help us be prepared to survive, then you don't freeze. You're not paralyzed. I show videos of my presentation of active shooter incidences, and one is a school board in Panama City, Florida. Okay. And when the gunman opens fire, and these guys know, these board members know it's coming because the guy's telling them, "I'm going to die today."
Yeah, I've seen this.
One guy, most of them act very slowly, but one guy in particular wraps his arms around himself and just sits there instead of diving for cover. Now, that is somebody that is paralyzed with fear. Mm-hmm. He had 5 minutes of this guy talking to prepare for a reaction to save his life, and he didn't do that because he was scared. Mm-hmm. I never want anybody. In fact, Byron, let me explain why I even started doing this. Mm-hmm. 5 years ago, when I was seeing these active killer incidences take place, I started researching them, and I found that so many people were dying, and I'm going through the scenarios in my mind, and I'm thinking, well, why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you do that? Yeah. And I'm thinking, because they didn't know better. These people had no training. No one ever said, if this happens, do this. So suddenly they're faced with this horrific,
gigantic
situation.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely paralyzed in fear, and they do nothing or they do the wrong thing. And I say in my presentation, in my teaching, I say it's like 2 + 2.
Yeah.
I come up to you when you're 5 years old and I say, what's 2 plus 2? You're going to sit there and think, even though you have no answer because no one's ever told you. If it's an active shooter situation, you're dead. Mm-hmm. When you're 6 and you learned it one time 3 weeks ago but didn't practice it, someone's going to say, what's 2 plus 2? You're going to go, hold on a second. So a few seconds later, you may have the right answer, but if it's an active shooter situation, you're dead.
Yeah.
If you're 7 and you were taught what 2 plus 2 is and you practice it for a year, and I say, Byron, what's 2 plus 2? You know, and you say 4. It's 4. Yeah. If you already went through the scenario in your head, I do an imagination exercise where I say, everyone close your eyes. Picture yourself in your workspace where you spend 8 hours a day, even if it's in your car, but if it's somewhere you spend a lot of time, if it's in church, if it's in a store, wherever you spend your workday, picture yourself where you're at. Close your eyes, hear the sounds, smell the smells.
Get there.
Now imagine a shooter coming in. What do you do? Can you leave? Can you block the door and impede, barricade and cover behind something that will take bullets and not be penetrated? Or do you have to engage this person?
Right.
That one little visualization, they now know what 2 plus 2 is.
Right.
So if it ever happens that way, they are going to not be frozen in fear. They're going to go, wait a minute, I know what to do. And that is empowering and emboldening. And instead of being paralyzed with fear, it says, hold on a second. Just like Liz Moreno, I know what to do. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to live today. Absolutely.
And then that determination that can come with that mindset. Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. And just to get people thinking that way, when they're in those environments, I couldn't agree with you more, man. Like the lack of just simply, and the value of just simply having that forethought inside your brain box of, you know what, if something happens, I'm going to get into action. All that stuff, man. It's more than valuable. I don't know if you were going to break it down principally to what it takes to survive. I mean, it's kind of what you're talking about, but if you were going to break it down into some succinct principles, what would you say? Active shooter situation, principally, what are your considerations?
As far as the program goes?
Yeah, the program, or what do you think is the most important considerations if, say we're in a church or a classroom and you start to hear gunshots? What's my mind? What do you want to start happening in someone's mind?
Okay, well, then I will go down the letters of ALIVE because that will spell it out. The A is for assess. And when something like that happens, you have got to assess what is happening so that you can then react appropriately, which means rationally and reasonably, not emotionally.
Right. Yeah.
The analogy I use is if you're ever in an argument with your spouse or significant other, and that person says something that really, really
triggers you,
strikes a chord in you, you react emotionally. Do things get better at that point, or do they get worse? Typically, they go downhill. But if you stop and you take a deep breath and you say, okay, now wait a minute. Let's look at this.
Yeah.
If you react rationally, your odds of survival are significantly better. You're not going right out into the middle of something. You're going to think about what you do. So assess means you take a deep breath, you get some oxygen to your brain, you figure out what's going on, and now you consider your next best steps to survive.
Absolutely. And the brain's smarter. Your blood's going to come back up. You're going to kind of, your sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, you're slowing it down. You're getting some oxygen and you're actually smarter.
Adrenaline hits, man. It's, if chaos happens and that adrenaline hits and you don't know what to do, it makes it 10 times worse. But if 100%. You take charge of your thoughts and your next steps, it makes you that much more capable of achieving those things.
Absolutely.
The second one would obviously be leave, which is get the hell out of there as quick as you can, as far away as you can, if you can do that. Unfortunately, several young people in Columbine did what they were taught. They dove under tables, and they ended up executed. They were killed because they didn't run like so many other people did.
Yeah.
They did not run. They stayed there and got under tables, which provided no cover or concealment. The I is impede. If you're in a room or you can get into a safe room or a copy room or anything with no windows and a solid core door and block the door or lock it, you're gonna be in way better shape. They're not going to spend 5 minutes trying to get to you.
Yeah.
They're going to go to an easier target because they know their time. Most of these guys kill themselves. More than 50% kill themselves.
Yeah.
They know the minutes are numbered, and that's why 10 minutes is so important. A lot of these guys, like I put in the book, just hearing the sirens, they turn the gun on themselves.
Yeah.
So you impede.
That's just the classical coward,
100%.
It's just such, yeah.
Well, and you know what? They are cowards. And the reason they're doing this is to get the power and control that they lost, that they feel was taken from them. They don't blame themselves for giving it away. They blame other people for whether it's the wife who divorced the guy and took his kids.
Yeah.
Whether it's the high school kid that got picked on, Elliot Rodgers, who he couldn't get a date, and the football guys made fun of him. It's power and control, and they figure, I'm going to get this power and control back by instilling fear and taking lives.
And the significance.
And I'm going to keep that power and fear by not being taken into custody or letting someone else kill me. I'm going to take my own life, which that means I still have the power and the control.
Yeah.
So, even if they're shot by law enforcement, they will then usually take their own lives because it has to be by their own hand.
Wow. Yeah. And I think too, as we see a lot of emotional intelligence and like entitlement and bad parenting become systemic problems in our country, I feel like these types of incidents are becoming more and more frequent, and
listen, they're not going to get better.
Right.
It's going to get way worse before it gets better. I have a theory.
Yeah.
It'll get better, but there's going to have to be a major paradigm shift in the way we do things and the way we think and the way and by the way, this is good for the security industry.
Yeah.
But many of these guys will target somewhere, go there and find out there's security there
and not
say, I won't be successful. And that's the only thing they fear. They don't fear death. Yeah. They fear failure. And then they'll go somewhere where there isn't security.
Right.
So, there needs to be more security.
Yeah.
The targets need to be made harder.
Yeah.
We need to create a culture that, just like you don't yell fire in a theater and you don't yell bomb in an airplane, you don't say I'm going to shoot something up unless you mean it. And guess what? These guys always telegraph.
Yeah.
Stephen Paddock is the only guy, we still don't know his motive and nobody knew he was going to do it. But every other, active incident that comes to mind, they put it out there on the internet. Cruz, at Marjorie Stoneman High School, put it on the internet twice that he was going to go do it. The kids in Columbine, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, they had friends that knew. They put it on their website that they were going to do something like that. I mean, there's these signs. Well, now we can't ignore the signs.
Right.
Law enforcement has to have the teeth to do something. They didn't used to for domestic violence, but now cops get called to a domestic violence case. Somebody's going to jail. They're not going to leave those two people alone because so many times they leave and someone ends up dead.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to show same thing. All these guys, Elliot Rodgers, cops knew, they responded, they talked to him. There was nothing they could do. So they left and then they did these things. So things are going to change and it will get better, but it is going to get worse before then. And it is the last 4 years in a row, the body counts have gone.
They have just been going higher and higher. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, no, in the, faith-based organization world, same thing. These types of incidents have been on the increase as well.
Look at the synagogue in Pennsylvania, man. That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The all-black church in, it was.
Tennessee?
No, that was, I think it was North Carolina about 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
By white supremacists. I mean, look at the even abortion clinics. And by the way, along those lines, the three reasons people do this is anger and revenge.
Okay.
Mental illness. And by the way, a lot of people think that most of these people are mentally ill. The Secret Service and Homeland Security, FBI, did, I believe, 12 or 14-year study. They just came out with a few months ago. Less than 25% of these incidences occurred due to mental illness, whether it be beforehand they were thought to be that, or afterwards their behavior was examined and they were thought to be that. And then the last one is ideological, and ideological would be religious, racial, homophobic, sexist, ISIS, that sort of thing.
So ideological was how much? What percentage?
I don't know what the percentage is of ideological, but because of the extreme Islamic extremists that are killing people just because they're not Muslim, right? Has been dramatically. Paris has seen tons of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, the abortion clinics.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't want somebody killing babies, so they go in and kill everybody.
So they go kill everybody. It's amazing.
Yeah, and then now Cho with Virginia Tech, clearly he was schizophrenic. There's no question about that. But Elliot Rodger in Isla Vista in Santa Barbara, he had what I would characterize as an emotional disorder. He had an inferiority complex. Yeah. He was not certifiably mentally ill.
Clinically significant.
He just had some emotional stuff because of how he grew up and some things that had happened to him. Yeah,
that's wild. And then also with regards to the faith-based organization, something we see as a factor is domestic issues. You're counseling a couple. You tell her she should probably go stay with her parents because you're counseling them because of physical violence. And, partner X wants to come back and show the church, show the establishment that they can't come between them and their spouse. And there's a whole rash of incidents that occur with that premise, And
domestic violence bleeds into a lot of different
venues. Yeah. And so these are just considerations and things you got to think about. Really, it kind of comes full circle into the world that we have to exist in, which is the kind of ethereal and imaginary world. Before these things happen, you've got to think about the worst case scenario, plan for the worst case scenario. Don't put anything past anyone.
Situationally aware.
Exactly. Yeah, be very situationally aware. I
spent a lot of time on that because so many people just, and we'll call them sheep. The ones that just kind of go through life not really looking around thinking something bad could happen. They have no imagination. But just knowing your surroundings and getting into the habit of looking around to see if anything appears to be out of place or doesn't fit. If a guy walks into a diner with a heavy coat in the middle of summer, obviously there's something not quite right. Does it mean he's a killer? No, but keep your eye on it. Stay aware of what's going on.
And look for the clusters. He has a big coat on. Is he watching? Is he relaxed? Is he a little bit nervous? If he is, we got 2 strikes on him now. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Is he taking up a hard point in the room? What's his body language telling you? Does he know anyone there? Or is he there by himself? I get 3 clusters, bro. You're not getting positioning on me. and I'm code yellow, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah, like we were taught in EP school, like if you're in a crowd, a reception to your celebrity client, and they're walking down the line, and everybody's happy and excited to see him, and you see one person with a very serious look on their face, that's a major red flag. Same, all the 19 bombers at 9/11, all the surveillance videos show those guys clearly uptight and nervous and serious and not talking to each other. If you just being aware. Now, here's a problem I noticed. I thought to myself, how could so many people at the Route 91 Music Festival in Las Vegas not know that was gunfire? How? Because I've heard time and time again.
Denial reflex, I think.
It was firecrackers. Well, Byron, you know what? Most people have never heard a gun fired in person in real life. They've heard it in Hollywood, in movies, and it doesn't sound the same. Yeah. It sounds like a snap or a crack in real life in an open situation like that. Not this heavy duty boom.
It sounds like popcorn. First time I heard a firefight, I was like, sounds like someone's cooking popcorn. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah. Well, this is the kind of education people need to know. And in the beginning of every one of my classes, I say, show of hands, who here has had any form of active shooter survival training at all, including just seeing the Run, Hide, Fight video. And maybe 1 or 2 people out of 40 or 50 will ever say they did.
Yeah.
And that is not okay, man. My goal
today, not these days.
5 years, whether it's me or Alice or any of these other schools, I want to see at least half the room raising their hands, because it's like I compare it to team sports.
Yeah.
You're on a team, you run plays together in practice. Everybody knows their job and everybody knows everyone else's job. So you focus on your job, knowing that the guy to your right and the guy to your left know their job, and they're going to do that. Well, imagine if a room full of people have my training or one of the other trainings, and an active shooter shows up. That dude is probably going to be in trouble.
Well, it's like what to do. Exactly. It's like, well, you see in Israel. A terrorist pops up, kills like 1.5 people, gunned down by the civilian population, chased through the streets and shot and killed.
And you know why? Because it's a culture over there. Their entire culture is situational awareness, defense, combative, how to attack and when to attack.
Everyone is armed. I was in Israel. I've done a lot of ops in Israel, over a dozen. And I was in Israel and I went to this shop and I was looking at some knives. I was like, oh, they got some cool like knives or whatever. Everyone made fun of me for buying a knife. They're like, they're like, oh, you don't have a gun? I'm like, I can't have a gun. They're like, what do you want a knife for? And everyone had guns. Yeah. And they're just like, whatever. I see little kids on a field trip to the Holy Land. A bunch of just young kids, but there's one 14-year-old at the back of the pack with an M16 just in case, and they're dead serious. And that is one thing I love and respect about them, how they roll over there. If you're gonna fight, you better come to fight, because
Israelis don't fuck around.
Yeah, not in the least. And they have these incidents, these active killer incidents, and they get quelled. There's no 14 body count, injured, 20 some odd. Like, it just doesn't happen. It's like 2 or 3 people, got injured, 1 got killed maybe, and problem was solved.
And the only active killer incidents that happen over there are ideological. It's religion and politics, because they know nobody's going to do it for anger and revenge, and because they know better. It's not going to happen.
You have to be committed.
It's just
you have to be radicalized. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
You got to go all the way. You got to be radicalized. It's like the only motivation that's strong enough.
Another thing about Israel is, and I warn people right up front whenever I do my presentation, some of you are not going to like me by the end of this, because I am not politically correct. I tell the truth based in reality, and that's not always politically correct.
Yeah, and that's your responsibility as a trainer.
It is.
I got to look myself in the mirror when I get done with this, Yeah,
and you know what? Honestly, if they hate me when I leave, but what I teach them saves their life, I can live with that.
Yeah.
But just like in San Bernardino, remember 2-3 Christmases ago when the couple, the extreme Muslim couple, went and they shot up all those, they killed 14 people at the San Bernardino government office, and the FBI interviewed their neighbors after that and said,
"Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Did you ever see any behavior that you thought was odd? Did they ever do anything that you questioned?" They said, "Oh yeah, this happened, this happened, this happened." And the FBI said, "Well, why didn't you say something?" And they go, "Well, we didn't want anyone to think that we were racist."
Right. That's a real thing. That is a real thing. It's a real tragic thing. But what do you do, And that's your freedom of speech there that's being encroached on by that kind of culture, Yeah, man. And it's a tragedy. I agree 100%. That's wild, man. So
and the moral of that story is, forget political correctness. You don't have to judge somebody by their color or the way they look, but if their behavior is questionable and it can be hurtful, then you got to tell somebody, whether it's in the workplace, a church, even in your own home. So many of these young people that do these things, there were so many signs that the parents just dismissed.
Yeah.
If they'd have had their antenna up, they would have realized, hey, there's something serious going on here.
Yeah, I need to go look under your bed. And it goes back to one of our other ones. I had Yosef Badu of Emergence on, and he taught the hunter-killer program in the Marine Corps for a decade or so, and it was good. He had some good gouge too, and he was talking about how don't theorize someone's intent. If you see them doing something that doesn't look quite right, take it at face value. Hey, I don't know what it's just nothing personal. You can be black, white, yellow, orange, pink, whatever color you want to be. But what you're doing right now is suspect. And don't, maybe in their, no. Because that's the first mistake you make.
Yeah, you don't dismiss their behavior. And that's what we do. Especially in California.
Make it okay.
People's Republic of California, we're supposed to accept everybody for everything. And that's fine.
Right.
We do that. But if their behavior is questionable and it could mean they're going to do something that's going to hurt other people, we have a duty to say something to somebody.
Literally. Absolutely. And so you were running through Alive. I wanted to get all the way through that.
So V, we're to V. That's violence. Yes. I spend the majority of my time on that. Now, my program is two modules. One is classroom. I do from 2 to 3 hours in the classroom. So that's typically, and that's the majority of what I do. And then I have a second module that I will do if the clients want to pay for it, which is, scenarios and practical exercises and so forth. But I spent a lot of time on the violence portion because that's where it really is important. This survival mindset is really the most vital and essential, because if you have an opportunity to take this person down, you have to take it, because again, remember, let me qualify that.
Okay.
Like I said, an active killer's sole purpose is to kill as many people possible in a short amount of time as possible.
Right.
Now, I would never tell another human being that you need to go kill that person or whatever. If you can run. If you can take cover, take cover. But if you are faced in a situation where that person, there's imminent danger,
it's time to fight.
Because that person can turn the gun at you at any second and kill you, and they don't have the gun pointed at you. The best thing you can do is to attack them in a group, especially.
Right.
Here's the perfect illustration of that. James Holmes, at the Aurora movie theater in Aurora, Colorado.
The Batman show?
Huh?
The Batman show?
When he walked in through the exit door at the bottom of the stairs. If you're looking at the screen, the far left exit door that goes out to the back of the building.
I've been waiting for someone to do that for so long. All of us CCW guys have been waiting for somebody to do that.
Well, he walked in. This is what's interesting, and this is more about psyche and mindset. This guy walked in, and the closest people to him were the 4 rows of chairs next to the wall. He walked in and was literally facing them. He was just 3 or 4 feet length. Okay. Now, if your whole purpose is to kill a bunch of people, I would start with the people closest to me if I was the shooter.
Absolutely.
He walked in, he looked at them, he looked them in the eye, and he made a connection with them, and they were now human beings. They weren't things that he was going to destroy. So somehow, whatever fucked up way of thinking he had, that I'm going to kill all these things, he looked at them and went, those are people. Something touched a string, and he didn't. He turned away and started shooting into the majority, the larger group. Now, at that point, if those people had known what to do, 2 of those people could have immediately, he had a long gun. It's very easy to control a long gun.
Absolutely.
2 people could have rushed him and taken him down, and several people would have lived. But nobody told them that. Nobody taught them that.
Yeah.
So if you have that, if you have the understanding and the education, and I tell you, look, if that person turns away, and you and the person next to you can control them, can swarm, you're going to save your life and the other people's lives around you. Because he could have very easily, they didn't know, he could have turned and shot them right after that. Right. Their best course of action to survive that situation at that moment was to try and take him down.
100%. And I think on this too, I think it's good to understand violence, in more than just an ethereal way. Go get a membership at a gym and go roll around on the mat and get punched in the face and realize you're not so fragile. So you can actually achieve a level of violence that can give someone like that you can break their will or break them physically. Girl or boy, go get beat up.
Well, another thing that I always say is I also have people raise their hands. How many people have taken any form of self-defense training?
Yeah.
Byron, you would be shocked at how few people know the first thing about how to defend themselves. And that makes them literally more easily a victim, if nowhere else, because in their mind. Because if somebody's going to attack you and you know for a fact you don't know how to defend yourself, you immediately have a defeatist mentality.
Submissive.
You're like, I'm going to lose because I don't know what to do.
Right.
But if you have some form of, this is what I need to do, and you go to, okay, I'm not gonna think that I'm gonna die or get my ass whooped. Yeah. I'm gonna think, what do I do now? You're already have an advantage.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Like you said, these people are cowards. They're floating on this thin bubble of courage that's all bullshit.
Exactly.
Courage. It's just this God complex, this sense of power, because they are distributing fear throughout the masses and can take lives. As soon as you knock them on their ass, what do you do to a bully? You hit him in the face as hard as you can.
And he doesn't mess with you anymore. Yeah, exactly. And I remember one of the college shooters, I don't remember which case it was, but I remember watching one of the students run out in the hallway, challenge him. They scrapped for a little bit. And I mean, he just mopped the floor with the guy. The guy had a gun.
That was a high school.
He took the weapon from the guy. I think the guy had another gun. He came back and messed him up again, you know.
Yeah. The kid came out. He was a high school wrestler.
Yeah.
He was in the office as he was an aide or something. And the guy had just come through the door. He had a long gun.
Mm-hmm.
Came in. He grabbed him. He wrapped him up. He took the gun, ran back inside. Then the guy reaches for a knife. So he comes out. He wraps him up again. And then I think the school resource officer showed up at that point.
Yeah.
And, it's a beautiful video. I love it.
Absolutely. But there is so much to be said for, you know what? I'm just not going to be a sheep. I'm going to go to a UFC gym or whatever it is, and I'm going to get inoculated to some abuse, you know? And it does so much more for you than just a physical thing. It's a psychological thing. It's a mental thing. It's a spiritual thing. Understanding how to push your body and how to deal with stress, how you're stressed out in your everyday life, going ahead and let some 200-pound guy get on top of you and start messing you up for a couple of hours, a day. And you'll find that in your everyday life, you're able to, you know what, let's prioritize, let's execute, control what we can control. Let me breathe through this. It does so much for you.
Yeah. Knowing you're not going to just crumble after one punch. I don't know about you, but having a father like I did, I got my ass whooped more than one time.
Oh, yeah.
I know how thick my skull is.
Right.
So I'm going to be able to take a pretty good punishing before I go down. And
absolutely.
That makes me even, it makes me feel like, hey, I'm going to keep going until I can't go anymore. And I've got a lot further to go.
Yeah, a lot to give.
That emboldens me to go, hey, I am going to succeed in taking this person down. So
100%. And then also for me, like my mentality is, hey, you know what? Like we all got to die. And if I'm going to go, I'm not going to be one of those guys who are like, well, why didn't he do anything? No. I'm going to go. No. I'm going to go epic, doing everything I could to stop that situation. It's the only way I'll die well. I'm not good with it either. Any other real way.
That's kind of the sheepdog mentality. A really good test. I was watching, and you know what? I know Dave Grossman. He's a great guy. The one that talks about, sheep and wolves and sheepdogs. Super cool guy.
Yeah.
And the thing with that, the world needs sheep. We can't all be sheepdogs.
Yeah.
The world needs sheep to balance things out, because if everybody was a sheepdog and a wolf, it'd be
crazy.
All the time. But the reason, and people go, hey, I don't know if I'm a sheepdog. I've never been in a situation to find out.
Yeah.
I was watching a video a year or so ago, and this is what I came up with. A good test of whether you're a sheep or a sheepdog. I was watching a video of some kid, it was on YouTube, some kid being bullied by a bunch of other kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid was trying to walk away, but they just kept smacking him and hitting him, and they finally knocked him down, and they just kind of got around him and started beating the living hell out of this kid.
Yeah.
And I felt absolute rage.
Right? The little meter's just going up.
I wanted to go there and grab these kids by the neck and twist them until their fucking heads popped off.
Wherever they're at in life right now, kick the door in and go. Yep.
And so what I was thinking is, well, gosh, that's an awfully extreme reaction. Why am I so upset about this? And then I thought, well, what would the opposite reaction be? What would someone else do? And I thought, well, they would feel bad for the kid.
Yeah,
they would want to get help. They would run away and get help. And I thought, well, I wonder if that's the difference between a sheep reaction and a sheepdog reaction. I think sheepdogs would typically run towards the fire,
100%,
the gunfire or whatever, and the sheep would typically run away. And there's, like I said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with either one. It's just a difference in personality. Oh, right. One other point I want to make. Remember when I said that you leave or you impede, but if you're in a situation where you have to attack the person, it is a 100% personal decision as to whether to attack or save your own life, go towards the danger to protect others, or save your own life. And I don't judge anybody for either one. Okay, that is a personal decision, because that person either needs to live or die with that decision. Exactly. So if they go in, good example, that shooting at the country bar, I can't remember what it's called, the country bar in Thousand Oaks about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, the recent one.
The recent one. And there was an interview with a guy that was there with his son. And the guy was standing there being interviewed, apologizing and sobbing and saying, "I'm sorry I didn't do more. I'm sorry I didn't go back in. I felt so bad. I just wanted to make sure my son was safe."
Yeah.
That man is dealing with the decision he made, and his son is safe and he's safe. But now he's dealing with a decision he made not to help. And that could be a really hard decision too. So either way, it's going to be a pretty heavy burden for some people, but that's what you got to live with. So you can either get your own butt out of there, which there's nothing wrong with. Right. But guys like you and I, probably without thinking too much about it, are going to go towards it and try and disarm the guy, kill him, whatever it takes, or get people out just from our programming.
Yeah, or die well, and that was always the plan.
Or die armed.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. 100%, man. That mentality thing, if there's one thing you can do for yourself before anything like this happens, that I think is the most effective thing you can do for yourself, is really think about those decisions and stay aware and stay thinking about that stuff. Like, I had a guy comment on one of my things I posted on Instagram the other day. He was like, "Oh, so," I said something. I dropped the General Mattis quote at the end of one of the videos where someone's situational awareness saved their life. And I said, "Be courteous, be kind, but have a plan to kill everyone you meet." And he was like, and he came through and he was like, "Oh, so you're saying basically be in fear everywhere you go." And I was like, God bless you. Listen, I was like, for me,
I respond.
Yeah, and I did. I haven't even looked at the comments since. Every once in a while, I'll just drop back in and because we know the game, But this guy, I gave him a response, and I was like, "Look, man, to me, it's not about being afraid. It's about being prepared.
Sure.
And I'm of better service to everyone who I love if I am prepared. And in fact, me thinking ahead this way actually, I said something about kind of keeps me calmer, and actually I'm in more of a position of power tactically more often because I think this way. So it's really not about fear or anything else." And then I think I ended it with some smart comment about how you don't see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. And so if this means fear to you, then maybe this video is a mirror. You should take a look at something like this, because it means different things to different people. But to me, that's what it meant, No, I love that prepared mentality. Yeah. And it's the difference. It's the difference. The girl walking to her car after work that does have her keys in her knuckles and is watching because she realizes that in reality, she is physically vulnerable right now for this, 20-yard walk, is got a higher level of survivability than the one who's trying not to profile people and is like, God bless her.
Not just survivability. You know what? Predators are not going to prey on somebody they don't think they can overcome.
This is so true.
Woman, and I teach this. If a woman's walking through a parking lot with her head high, looking around, looks like she's prepared to take care of business.
Yeah.
Assholes aren't going to attack her. They're going to go somewhere else.
Exactly.
They're going to go to a soft target, low-hanging fruit, because they're cowards. And, but just the woman knowing just even having 2 hours of self-defense training, just knowing that she's capable of defending herself gives her a little bit, her chest out, her chin up, and that appearance is a deterrent to these guys.
Yeah, it's an energetic deterrent. It's a harder target, and her just knowing she has the tools, 100%. It's a psychological tactic, really, 100%. So we were banging through the alive, and we hit violence. And what's the final one? My
favorite. Yeah, the E is for expose, and that is basically be smart. When you think it's over, you expose yourself carefully. You could you poke your head out, and there might be a second shooter, or he or she was reloading. Which, by the way, 98% of active shooters are male, so I usually use he.
Yeah.
Or you come out and you're running down the hallway, and you come around a corner with your cell phone in your hand, and there's SWAT or there's the fast reaction team. Boom. Ready, and they don't know you're a good guy, so you have to expose yourself very, very carefully. And basically, it's just another opportunity to stop and assess what's going on, and then think like this, not like this, because the emotional reaction will get you into trouble every time.
100%. So, just basically thinking through like a CCW guy. Hey, think all the way through the engagement. If I have to go ahead and take these steps, if I do don my weapon, get into this engagement, what are going to be my plan? What's my plan of action when now I'm preparing for the next fight, which is, law enforcement and talking about what happened and sit down, get the witnesses, get yourself clear your weapon and get yourself in a safe place.
Speaking of CCW guys, now I teach in the South a lot.
Yeah.
And I speak very differently to people like in Nashville and Georgia and Mississippi and stuff when I teach than I do in, say, California, because everybody's got a gun down there.
Right.
So I say, and even in my book, I say, look, if you've got a weapon, when you got to run, when you got to take off and leave, you take your weapon with you, your cell phone and your weapon. Now, here's the thing that I'm very careful to make sure everyone understands. The cops are not going to want you to have a weapon, but I'll tell you what, I got 2 in my desk right now, and if I have to bail, there's a threat out there, I'm not leaving without my gun.
Right.
But this is what I tell people: if you're gonna leave with your gun, you keep it. Hopefully, you're with other people that are running the same way, which cops are going to identify with. They're trying to get out of there, even if they do see a gun. But if you're running, you keep the gun kind of behind you, ready to use, but behind you. And if you encounter law enforcement, immediately throw it to the side and put your hands up and say, I'm not the shooter, I've got a CCW, or I've got a weapon. Because
hands.
Two different occasions, guys with guns, civilians with guns, were shot by law enforcement after they had responded to an active killer.
Okay.
One, I believe, died and one lived. So you got to be careful. And cops are going to know, more and more people are going to get guns. For anti-Second Amendment people, it's not going to be a very good, very happy time for them, because the world America has no choice but to arm themselves if they want to live.
Right.
Because the bad guys don't care about gun laws.
Right.
So the cops are now
is murder illegal, or did I miss something? Is there like a law against that, or we don't even have to have that conversation? No. I was just wondering.
They're now incorporating training to law enforcement that responds is to make sure to be aware that somebody may have a gun that isn't a bad guy, and you don't want to shoot them right away. So again, it's going to be this whole change of our culture. And that's going to be part of it. The law enforcement's training, which changed after Columbine, because that was unfortunately horribly, well, they didn't know better, but that horribly reacted to. Even Marjorie Stoneman High School, the Broward County Sheriff's Department, their training was antiquated. They did the wrong thing. They didn't go in right away. Scott Peterson, the school resource officer, he didn't go in. He stayed outside. I mean, these are all things that now the training is going to be universal. Everybody's going to know exactly what to do and how to do it. And I think we're going to start to be able to finally curb these things.
Awesome. 100%. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, you got to think about the way that you'd be, the mindset you would have going into an active shooter scenario, and then take that mindset and that intensity that you're going to hit that door with and consider the varying levels of experience with regards to combat, the varying levels of fear, the varying levels, of all those different law enforcement personnel and first responders that are entering that situation. There are a few feelings in the world, like hitting a door when there's someone on the other side with a gun.
They might have a gun.
Yeah, they just, I just set that right there. Just a few more questions. Prevention for the active shooter, active killer scenario.
Yeah.
We'll touch on a few things there real quick.
I was asked that. In fact, I started thinking immediately after the Las Vegas shooting. I thought, what do you do at that point? When there's 33,000 people around you, you can't run because you're shoulder to shoulder, chest to, butt to back. So what do you do? And people asked me, and I even wrote an article and put it on, published it, that
awesome.
Basically you have to back up and go, how could this have been prevented? The only thing you could have really done was not put yourself in a position to be boxed in. Yeah. And unfortunately, when we buy tickets to a concert, me included, and I go to a lot of concerts, I want to be front and center, man. But that is probably going to be one of the most dangerous spots from an elevated position. Now, Stephen Paddock, we haven't had a shooter, a sniper like that since the Texas College clock tower 50 years ago. So that was kind of an anomaly. Yeah. But I tell people now, and I even went to a Luke Bryant concert with my girlfriend and her family in Utah, and I told everybody, okay, here's the deal. We're going to check out the exits to the venue, to the property, to the venue, and then to the area where we're supposed to be. We're going to have a rally point if something goes down, but let's try and stay either near some pillar where we can find cover or an exit where we can get the hell out of there. Yep. So really it's going to come down to avoidance and preparation.
Yeah. Like that. 100%. And by
the way, that is, I separate the two. I talk about a security mindset, which is avoidance, preparation, how to stay out of a situation that can get you killed. And then the survival mindset, which then starts as soon as an event like that begins. Yeah,
they really are two different things. I worked in a venue with a client a few months ago where we were in a big kind of like Coachella-ish, concert-ish type environment. And for me, one of the primary considerations was, all right, we're in it. We're in the thick of it. What can I use for an exit that people aren't going to recognize as an exit? What, barriers can I get my clients through, around, or over quicker than probably most people can escape and evade? And so, there were some spots in the fence where it wasn't actually secure. They were just using cover. And I was like, all right, sweet. I can push right through those two, that weak spot in the fence, and we can get to the vehicles, and basically everywhere we went throughout that venue, I was constantly looking at, the escape plan, the E&E plan, always upgrading it in real time, just as much as I was taking in, everything else in my environment. If I was there with my family, which might be the most important protection mission you're ever on in some ways, in some ways of looking at it, that is something that I'm always considering. All right, crowds are dangerous. We're here. How am I going to deal with this crowd if I need to get my people, whoever they are, clients, family members, out of here? And I'm upgrading that strategy in real time just as much as I'm taking in the festivities. And it doesn't mean that you're a stress case, but it means that you're taking on full responsibility of being the protector in the environment, Also, I think something that I think is very important too is the hard targeting aspect of what can possibly factor into prevention for a lot of these things. With one of the places of worship clients that we've had, we were allowed to do armed security at one of the venues, and we had an incident at that venue where patrons went to another campus where we didn't have armed security, and they ran amok and did their little deed there, because that one venue with the armed security was a hard enough target to where the deterrence factor worked. So that's something else I think is deterrence, and then also, planning for the aftermath with regards to, your TCCC or whatever it is, being able to handle something like that if you happen to be in charge of a facility where you have to consider these things.
Yeah.
So, and then one question I like to ask as we end, what daily practices do you have that you feel make you better at what you do as a protector? You know, what do you do? Kind of your daily, like, is there anything you want to give to people that you say, hey, this is something that I do within my lifestyle that you should consider, that I think makes me better at my job, what I do, who I am?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Constant practice of situational awareness.
Boom.
Even if you're at the grocery store by yourself,
right?
Practicing being aware, looking at people. When I say profiling, I don't mean racially or any of that other crap. I mean profile
the important stuff.
Yeah, profile their behavior.
Right.
Be aware of their behavior. You know, I use this video, and I don't know if it's MGM or whoever shot the Bourne series, but they'll probably be mad. I use this short video of Jason Bourne in the very first Bourne movie where he's in a diner with the German girl. And he says, when I walk in here, I'm constantly looking around. I look at, the guy at the counter is 215 pounds and knows how to handle himself. The waitress is left-handed. Yep. I know the best place to find, there's 7 cars outside. I know the license plates of all of them. And the best place to find a gun is in the glove box of the gray truck. Yeah. So I use that as kind of an extreme example of situational awareness. I think that just constantly practicing awareness of your surroundings.
Yes.
It's kind of like driving. If you're driving down the highway and you're constantly glancing in all 3 of your mirrors, you always kind of have an idea of what's around you.
Where those cars
all of a sudden somebody swerves into the lane, you know that 5 seconds ago there was no cars to your right. Well, you can either get hit or you can take a chance knowing I'm pretty sure there's no cars to the right because I already saw, and you swerve out of the way and you don't get hit.
Yeah.
Just knowing what's going on around you will give you an advantage in so many different ways. But when it comes to safety and security, I would say whether it's your own safety or security or that of your protectee, that's got to be one of the best things you can practice on a daily basis.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And I have had that specific incident on a detail where a client had to slam the brakes. He had a high performing vehicle, stopped on a dime. I was in a chase vehicle. I was in like an Escalade. And because I had that situational awareness and I knew that there was not a vehicle next to me on my left, just in the nick of time, I was able to take that gamble. Hey, I just checked that mirror without looking, boom, and flew past the client so fast the client didn't even see me. I would have hit him at over 60 miles an hour. Grace of God, but that situational awareness, that variable.
Good for you. That's
that variable, because something happened in front of him and he had to slam the brakes. That's awesome stuff, man. That's what I have for our conversation today, Micheal Julian. It has been an honor having you on here, and I think we've covered a whole bunch of stuff, man. It's been great. Where can we find you? What are you up to today?
Well,
all that stuff.
So the security company is MPS Security Protection. We are a national company. The states we're not licensed in, we've got very good partners that are qualified that we deal with, doing executive protection of all kinds. The Alive program is, and by the way, it's security-mps.com. The Alive program website is activeshootersurvivaltraining.com, and you can get the book there or on Amazon. I feel as though I'm kind of privileged. I came in at a time when this was really, really needed, and I was frustrated. I was pissed off that people were dying because they didn't know what to do. So I just figured out what I thought they should do, and I created a lesson plan, and it turns out that it actually works. So I'm really I feel fortunate that I'm in a position to help people learn how to do this stuff. And like I said, I'm not going to tell anybody my program is the best. Any training is better than no training, but you've got to get the training or you're literally helpless. You're going to be overcome by fear or make the wrong decision because you use your heart instead of your head. So, and I teach this stuff all over the country. And by the way, this sounds real salesy, but I have a lot of guys in the industry who come to me, their corporate clients want the training but don't know where to get it.
Yeah.
So they refer me to their clients. I go do the training, and of course, I always take care of finder's fee or whatever, anybody that acts as a salesperson for me. So anytime I can do these, I'm scaling it right now because I can't handle the demand, and frankly, I don't want to travel as much as I have been. So right now, I'm vetting and training and certifying instructors to handle certain areas of the country. And they will get paid if I send them the gig, they'll get paid as an instructor. But if they go out and find it, like what's one of their clients, they'll get paid as an instructor and a commission on the deal, on the training. So anyway, so I'm real happy that I'm in a position that I can give people this training, because I thank God I know it works, because Liz Moreno contacted me and said that the program saved her life. So I feel blessed.
That's huge. Guys out there with corporate clients, considerations, boom. Man, thanks so much for coming on. I look forward to the next time our paths cross. Man, I know that you demonstrated a ridiculous amount of value with this interview. So thanks so much for your time. It was an honor. And we'll see you. One mind, many weapons. We'll see it. We'll see you out there in the game. Thanks, Micheal. Boom. And to support this podcast, go to executiveprotectionlifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry, and also to making America a safer place by teaching people how to protect themselves and the mindset behind that, the lifestyle behind that. You guys are already killing it. $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever you can do that you would probably just lose in the mattress anyway, or spend on McDonald's. Hey, you want to put it towards something that's going to good use, put it towards a podcast, and get involved in our Patreon account at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. And if you want to find me, that's ByronRodgersMotivation.com. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can to that Patreon account, because it makes all of these things possible, ladies and gentlemen. So much love. Thank you, and thank you for making those contributions. You guys rock. We're already doing amazing there, and it's just because of you guys. So thanks once again for those contributions. Boom. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. This whole entire thing actually just started off as a Facebook group that blew up and is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing, executive protection Facebook group online. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, join the Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram and check us out at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. If you want to find me, that's ByronRodgersMotivation.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as well. So until the next podcast, y'all, stay sharp out there. And as I say it, one mind, many weapons. Talk soon. Out.